Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Our guests today are Adam Wills, he's CEO of Turnkey Internet, and also Tim Kirsch, who's VP of Business Development. They're a leading New York-based data center and web solutions provider, and they're based right here in Latham, New York. I want to welcome you both here to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Thank
you, Richard. Pleasure to be here.
We keep finding gems in Latham, and I think this is one that I wasn't as aware of as I would have wanted to be. Could you tell us a little bit about Turnkey Internet?
Sure. Basically, our company is a cloud-based solutions provider. We help businesses take information technology out of their offices, put it into highly secure, high-speed, redundant data centers so that they can basically make technology easier to access, faster, get access to better technologies, and reduce costs. We've been doing it for a long time now. We've actually started in 1999. We've been focusing on this cloud-hosted solution since 2003. And we've been right here in the Colonie, Latham, Albany area basically over the last 10 years. The reason we haven't been heard of as much is we focused on global sales. We have clients in 30 countries. And we've been focusing in the last couple of years now here into the capital region as we've purchased a building to expand our business, hiring on several people locally. So we have a new focus here right here in Latham, actually, where the building is for our new data center.
That's awesome. And Tim?
I think in addition to what Adam just mentioned, businesses are looking for local outlets to house their servers and their infrastructure instead of shipping it out to another location halfway across the country.
Or duplicating everything.
Exactly. And I was hired last year to help develop the business locally, and we've had some great success so far. And as we get into our new data center building, which is under construction currently, we're hoping to be in there, Adam tells me, by the third or fourth quarter of this year. I think we're going to have much more of a presence, and we'll be much more known in the area with some publicity we hope to get from that. But we're hoping to open up our data center to local businesses, bring them in, give them tours, show them what it's all about, so they can fully understand the security and the options that are available to them and the opportunity by viewing our state-of-the-art data center.
Great. I always do a little research on programs before they start, and I came across Global 1 and Global 2000.
Correct.
And my memory's not so great. I could be a senior citizen. I can buy cheaper tickets sometimes, but I still remember sitting at my desk and having Windows 3 and looking at Global 2000 as a source of connectivity. That was you, right?
That was. I was one of the three founding owners of Global 2000, which was originally called Global 1. We migrated to the name 2000 as we got closer to the millennium change. We were the first internet company here in the upstate region. We were the first to bring dial-up internet. We were originally an online information service before even dial-up, email, and internet were really in people's, language of the day. We ended up growing into the largest internet provider in upstate New York, and eventually we merged with several other companies and went public in 1998, and went through that whole .com run with everybody else back in the day. But yeah, we my other two business partners at the time, very smart people. We were doing stuff before anyone even heard of the internet. It was just right at the cusp of it. And we got out there in front of it, helped connect up pretty much all the major TV stations, radio stations, businesses. They all came through us back in 94, 95 to actually connect up with their first websites, their first email addresses. And it was a very big change in the day for people.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was a whole change in people's thinking. So it was very difficult going in at first trying to sell people on the business ideas because no one had websites. Who was going to be the first?
Yeah, you couldn't say, you can have your website here because they're asking you what is a website.
Correct. So it was a very interesting. The first 94, 95, it was difficult. People didn't really understand what the internet was, and then there was a kind of a what we call the snowball moment. It started to snowball, rolling downhill, and just grew exponentially.
Along those lines, that's pretty much what's happening right now with the all the information that people are seeing on television, radio, newspapers, magazines about cloud. I mean, nobody really knows what the cloud actually is, and as people become more familiar with the terminology and understanding it, I think that snowball effect is going to happen again.
It's kind of interesting when you were describing Global 1 and Global 2000, and I was thinking back, in those days there was generally a mini computer or a mainframe that we would connect to, and we on our desktops had extremely weak, compared to today. I had my little floppy disks that I was putting in, maybe the 3.5, maybe not floppy, but still very primitive computers compared to my phone today.
Yep.
And today we have pretty powerful desktop machines. So how did that work? You know, we kind of changed the configuration of the shops of the Global 1 kind of equipment, right? And we've changed, and now we're making another change.
Yeah, basically, with the early days of the internet, 94 through about 97, people were just getting introduced to the internet. It was exploding. Then there was such a demand for it. People were starting to find other ways to leverage the internet, what basically brought on broadband, high-speed internet, so people could actually do more rich media, business applications that just needed more than the traditional dial-up. So as we saw in 98, 99, 2000, it started to explode into everyone putting everything online. Devices had to start getting faster to keep up with the technology, storing more data. Through the next couple of years into around 2002, 2003, it started to become very apparent that trying to keep all that data in the business, in your hand and your device, wasn't quite as practical anymore. And the concept of cloud computing started to pop up right around 2003. And though it had been around, the concept being circular around the internet, people started realizing you could leverage high-speed computer equipment off the internet. Businesses really are the ones that gravitated towards it. No longer installing high-speed mainframes in the office, they could actually leverage computing through the internet, through that broadband source. It was slow to take on through 2003, through 2004, 5, 6, et cetera. It has started to really pick up over the last several years, and as Tim just alluded to, it's about to have that same snowball moment. We actually already have seen that last year with our growth. For the demand that our clients have been asking for these types of cloud resources. So we see that same 100%, 200%, 300% growth, potential in the cloud computing space in the next couple of years. And all the analysts from, IDG and these other very fancy firms say the same thing, that people are realizing that you can put your information technology into the cloud, stop buying the expensive equipment in your office. And that moment is pretty much here now. People are just starting to, accept it. Last couple of years, and that's what Tim's been helping us do, is going to businesses and explaining to them, just like back in 95, we had to say, this is what a website can do for you. Well, we don't have to say that anymore, but now we have to tell them, you could do this better, faster, cheaper.
From anywhere?
From anywhere, yeah, the mobility, the collaboration. So we're now actually in that education phase right now, and we're still growing at a very rapid rate with just the education phase. As soon as everyone already accepts it, which is going to happen in the next couple of years, that's when that snowball is going to happen again, the same snowball moment.
And what you mentioned earlier, when the mainframes first came out and your desktop unit was just a monitor and a keyboard, we are kind of going back to that with the availability now of thin clients that can just access the server that you've got housed online for your business. You no longer have to have the PC and hardware at your desktop with some of the systems that we've got in place now. And it becomes much less inexpensive for a small business to get their entire staff up and running, for instance, with a new business by either leasing thin clients from us or purchasing thin clients on their own. That's simply hooked to the internet and hooked to their server online. It's also a lot safer from a security standpoint that they haven't got to worry about viruses getting infected in the PCs and things of that nature.
Let's go into a little bit of the services. We talked about the cloud in general. What kind of services are encompassed in all that?
Sure. There are a lot of different aspects to it. The most traditional that people understand, of course, would be something related to a website. That could be database storage for the website, e-commerce, taking credit cards, orders, that sort of thing.
So it kind of starts there.
It starts there, and now that we've introduced the concept of outsourcing all the IT inside your organization, it's grown to replacing that Office server, replacing the software that you typically run on your desktop. We have applications that run in the cloud so that they don't have to pay a high upfront cost necessarily to whatever vendor they have. There might be a cloud version that we can host for them. So the last evolution is replacing the desktop computer, and that's just starting now. We have a new product for that we call the Turnkey Desk, which is essentially a virtual desktop. You no longer have an expensive, bulky computer that you replace every 2 to 3 years for $2 to $3 grand. You don't have to buy Microsoft Office. You don't have to install Windows. You now connect with what's called a thin client, and it gives you complete mobility. You can connect through an iPad device. You can connect through your phone, as Tim will show you here.
As an example, here's an example of our desktop, viewing it through the a small iPad. And you can actually, I can do this through my iPhone or any internet connection device, as long as it's capable of imaging, the Microsoft Windows.
So you would get the same data as if you were sitting at your desk.
Correct.
Exactly. And the benefit of that is that a lot of times people are very mobile, working from home. Maybe it's a sales group, sales organization, and they have issues with working at their desktop in their office. Then they go home and work on their desktop at home and try and communicate with their desktop at the office. And your files are either at your office or at your home, and you can't finish your work that you have to go to the next appointment. So by having a virtual desktop, everything is housed on the internet, and it's completely accessible from anywhere that has an internet connection. So you never have to worry about files being misplaced or not available to you.
I guess, well, maybe I should ask it a different way. Before we do that, there are a few other things we should probably cover that people do. You used the word replace, and I think that might be a key one, because we're all used to going on the internet or going to a database and doing something, our bank, and we don't expect the bank to be on our computer. But when you start taking things off of the computer and now we're using your software, we really notice that. I don't have to buy Microsoft Office, you said. But there were a few other things on your website I want to just get in there. The communication side.
Sure. We have several different communications products. One of the most popular one we have is called VoxWire Web Conferencing. It's very similar to the big brand names you hear advertising those web conference, Travel Less.
Forgot web something.
Yep, WebEx, GoToMeeting. Right. It's identical to those types of products. Our system's a little different in that it runs inside a web browser, so there's no software to download. But what it does is it creates a meeting room between 200 to 500 individuals simultaneously where you can present, communicate. We utilize it ourselves to communicate with our clients. As I mentioned, we have clients in 30 countries. Our staff is primarily located right here in Colonie. So we're not really traveling out to Iran, Egypt, or wherever we may have clients.
So you're walking the walk.
Correct. So we actually use that technology so we can do face-to-face presentations, meet with our client, discuss their needs, present it to them in a two-way communicative method that really is far more rich than just using a traditional telephone. So that's a service we offer to clients. It's very inexpensive. It's cheaper than typical phone service, and you have access to that for your whole business and all your sales staff. That's one of our communication tools. Another one that's popular, or becoming more popular, is our new Turnkey phone product, which is a phone replacement for your phone system. Businesses typically can spend tens of thousands of dollars putting in a phone system in their office. Our new Turnkey phone system, of course, is a cloud-hosted solution. So it replaces that bulky piece of IT equipment that goes in. You host it in our data center so that it's redundant. Should your office be offline for some reason, say a natural disaster, your entire phone system could be rerouted to staff in California. And it just works right over the internet through any traditional telephone line.
So as long as you've got power, you're good.
Correct, and that's actually one of the features of this that's the most popular in that Turnkey phone, is really the disaster redundancy. We've seen that with insurance agencies and different commercial business that just need a disaster recovery plan just in case. And you can't do that if your telephone number is pointing to one physical building. That's not going to fit your needs if you have to have a disaster plan.
Right. Mm-hmm. So maybe now's a good time for this question, but feel free to go back, because this is such a complicated and interactive or interconnected topic. Trying to get at maybe advantages and disadvantages, and why people are hesitant. You're pretty sure that this is going to happen, that I know California, they went to Google Office, and the whole state government went to it, so they must have bought into it. What are you hearing from clients? What are they afraid of? And
I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a potential client the other day in one of the networking events that I attend on a regular basis, and he's got a situation where he's got 3 different locations throughout New York State, substantial business, but he's the business owner, and his fear is, I don't want my information anywhere outside of my office. I don't want anybody to see it. So it's a hard sell to someone like that because they've got personal issues that they don't want to have that information accessible to anybody. Where in effect, it still is, because if he's hooking into that through the internet from his other offices, it's the same type of situation. But in that case, it's simply a matter of going back again and again and again and promoting the different
so in other words, somebody could have
options that are
hacked
available.
into his business probably easier than...
I would say yes.
Correct. What ends up happening in a standard office, the phrase best practices, which basically means having up-to-date software, the latest versions of software. That's not common in most offices. They don't have an IT person full-time to just keep up with things. Our system, for instance, the Turnkey Desk, comes with automation, and we take care of all that for them. So you get the latest version of Windows, you have the latest security and virus protection. So on our systems, they're less likely to be hacked for that. But take the same scenario in their office. They have a laptop. The salesperson has to download all the customer database to go out to the field to go do something. What if he leaves that laptop in the back of the taxi? Your entire customer information is right there.
And that's happened to some of our government officials.
Sure, we hear about that all the time. The census data, yeah, I've heard some horror stories with that. Well, with the Turnkey desktop system, though you can still access it from any mobile device, even in the back of the taxi cab, should you leave that device by accident in the back of the cab, there's no data on it. They're not going to be able to log into your desktop without your password. You can change that, and all your data is up in the cloud. So there's no risk of losing the data, just having it destroyed or stolen. So there's when customers have those security concerns, which really is probably the #1 concern today, there's that.
Because it's their business.
Correct.
Their trade secrets or whatever.
It is. And when you tell them about the benefits that the cloud computing brings to them, that helps alleviate some of the common security issues they have now, it takes that fear out of their mind pretty quickly.
I guess because it's new, it's a little bit harder to trust. I was thinking of a bank. You put all your financial information in the bank because we're not keeping our money in the house, in the mattress, or even a big safe in the office. We put it in a bank, we invest it, we make transactions and wire exchanges. So the bank has a lot of our really important information.
Sure, a lot of different businesses have your information, in fact. There's a lot more businesses that have everything online. You didn't see this 5 years ago. It's evolving more and more. You're right. A lot of people are hesitant because they're concerned with that information. It's very similar back to 1994, 95, 96, trying to convince businesses that they should start using email and start using a web page to take orders.
Or e-banking.
Right. The online banking didn't even start till about 98, 99, So we're definitely in an education phase right now. It's becoming more and more accepted. You mentioned state government in California outsourcing their system to a cloud-based system with Google. More and more companies and agencies are considering cloud sourcing in different fashions. It just makes more sense. It's green friendly, it's cheaper, it's easier. And at the end of the day, if you can get access to best-in-class technology for less, you'd be crazy not to try to, at least look at it. Not all businesses are ready for everything in the cloud. Most of them start with something in the cloud. That typically would be their email system, because there's more modern email features that are available. So that's the first thing businesses can.
So this would be a
slowly put out.
larger business, because most small businesses wouldn't even be able to set up their own email, right?
Most have it already.
Most have it already.
Yeah, most
Okay.
have email. They might have.
In-house.
Yeah, some of them have it in-house. Some of them might have it through a different provider, but they may not have compliance, the new laws and compliance requiring archiving and those sorts of things. So when we meet up with a client, that's pretty much the first thing that we can sort of get them to walk towards without really much of a concern, because they're already used to email. So we can give them better email for less cost and more features. And once we get them there, we start going into the rest of the opportunities, such as their office servers, their phone system, their desktops, and then all the different applications.
You just touched on something. You said, this is for larger businesses. I met with a client yesterday that has 2 office, two staff.
That's pretty small.
Run the company. Pretty small. But they have about 15 people working for the entire company, but only 2 office workers that actually need computers. But the situation that evolved in our discussions were that, simply put, their server, or what they're using as their server, that they're using a PC as a server, and the other person is using a PC, and they're kind of connected together somewhat. But all the information from an accounting standpoint, and all their customers and all their information of their customers, is on that PC, and they have some sort of disk backup that they take home every night, and that's their form of security and backup. Well, if for some reason they forgot to back it up that day, and the office had a fire or something of that nature, their information, their entire business is gone. They have,
or if they had a backup problem and then they restored the backup, which had a problem.
Exactly. So in their situation, being a small office of 2, we're presenting them with an opportunity to have a server in the cloud with 2 virtual desktops, so they can have connectivity between the 2, and they'll also have email addresses for the entire company of 15. And it just made so much sense to them. It's a very inexpensive offer to them when they can compare it to buying new PCs and a new server, and some sort of security backup system, and an email solution. And if you look at those costs over a 2 to 3 year period, economy of scale is that our offering is more economical for them, and it's certainly more secure and more accessible.
Without getting too technical, could you kind of give a broad brush overview of the cloud? We hear the word. I guess it's a very creative word, and whoever came up with it probably deserves some kind of a marketing award. But I'm sure the data isn't really in a cloud. There's water and mist, and obviously.
Yeah, the term has been vastly overplayed recently from a marketing standpoint. A lot of people refer to it as just anything in the cloud, meaning anything is on the internet. We like to look at it as information technology on demand, or IT on demand. Basically, access to the data, the technology, the software, even the hardware, literally when you need it, when you want it, anytime, anywhere. So if you're in the back of the cab, you're up 10,000 feet in a plane, you're in your office or at your home, you should have access to the exact same data, resources, anywhere, anytime. So it really comes down to that mobility and access to the best-in-class technologies is what's becoming more and more driven by the term. Other terms to it really revolve around just more of a utility. Think of it as your power, your electric bill, your water bill. People are starting to look at the cloud as possibly another type of utility where you just pay as you go for amount of storage. If you're playing a game on your iPad, or you're trying to send an email, every little bit counts. It's just like your electric meter just trickles off a little bit. And it's probably more moving towards that in the next 5 to 10 years, that cloud computing, there won't be desktops, there won't be even devices other than just screens that connect, and you're going to pay a small utility for every time a CPU has to send an electron. It's moving towards that.
So you're saying also that it saves energy?
It does save energy as well, absolutely. You take, for instance, a traditional office. They have a server that's been running their billing system for 5 years. It's very inefficient, old hardware. That computer's running 24 hours a day. Even if it's on standby at 3 in the morning, it's still got fans and resources running. What we do is we take that information off their server, we put it into our data center, into a kind of a virtual environment, the cloud, if you will. We have clients from all over the globe. We have clients in China, Japan that are using it when you're sleeping here in Colonie. And the people in Colonie are using their system when the folks over in Asia are asleep. So we're able to...
So you're balancing the load.
Correct. So we can virtually and dynamically adjust load on demand. So we're using energy in a more efficient manner. There's nothing idle or just sitting there spinning and doing nothing. So we can make it a lot more efficient. You can save as much as 60-70% of your energy utilization footprint as a business by moving it into the cloud.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very significant savings there.
Well, okay, now you said global, and you were mentioning somebody backs up their data to a device and takes it home. Mm-hmm. You have more than one data center, correct? You're not storing everything in the same place.
Correct. We have one that we're in now here in Albany, and we've purchased and we're finishing up deploying our second one here in Latham. We have facilities that are in London, California, and Texas. We don't own those buildings. We have areas where we store our servers and equipment for redundancy there. But our primary home base is right here in Albany and Latham. The new building being our largest flagship now, which will be 10,000 square feet with enough capacity there for more than 10 tenfold of what we have today.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
That brings up a good point. All the natural disasters that have been happening lately, and all the
Fukushima, for example.
yeah, all the talk of disaster recovery planning is a benefit to our business. I mean, it's a lot of clients are really interested in finding out what they can put in place as far as a disaster recovery plan for their data. And from what Adam just mentioned, we have remote locations throughout the world that we could also store backup data if there was a natural disaster in our area or a plane landed on our data center here or whatever. So some businesses, and the larger the business is, the more concerned they are. And it's not inexpensive to have a remote backup of your entire data system. So it's costly in some respect, but some businesses look at it as some form of insurance that they need to have in place. So it's a big benefit.
Well, I would
for
think
us
it
to
would
have
take
that.
some worry away from a person, and worry is not a very big help when you want to be creative. So I think that's probably a helpful thing for people who are entrepreneurs. They don't have to worry about such things.
Well, their data is going to be much safe in any single cloud situation versus their own office. You have power surges, storms, electrical impulses that are going to cause your computer or server in your office to fail more often than, say, one in a power-protected facility like our data center. So just taking it out of your office is going to make it more safe just from that type of protection. But we offer the clients, as Tim mentioned, an optional if you want to have it stored in London. We have 2 sites in Albany, so you can be at least 10, 15 miles apart, depending on how you want to have it set up. So those options are there for the clients. Most clients right now are just looking to get it out of their office because they know how high risk that can be for data loss. No backups, no protection. Literally, an employee could accidentally pick up the server and drop it, or theft, of course, from a rogue employee on their way out taking their computer with them with all the data.
Right.
So by moving that all out into the cloud, they just get so much more security and peace of mind as it is.
Are there any kind of contracts or anything when somebody signs on with you in terms of data? We have like HIPAA agreements when you go to the doctor. Now we're storing proprietary and strategic information on servers.
Sure.
Are there any legal protections or any ethical standards or anything that's
Well, we have a very robust terms of service that spells out what we provide and what the client is responsible for and what we're responsible for. We offer all different varying levels of service level guarantees, from 100% network uptime
Sounds
to data
impossible,
redundancy. Yeah, well, network uptime is different than because there's no moving parts in the network. But a
Okay.
computer can't be 100% because eventually a fan has to die.
Right.
But our cloud computing systems have redundancy built into them so that they can have very high uptimes of 99.9% and above. For guaranteeing data, we have different options for the client. We'll allow them to have redundant locations where the data gets stored. We'll even allow them to have a second copy stored back in their own facility just for peace of mind because some of them like to wrap their hands around it. With that. We don't actually force our clients to sign contracts other than our terms of service. We don't force them into 12-month, 36-month contracts. Everyone hates that with their cell phone provider.
Right.
You can't even get cable internet now without a 2-year agreement. We don't have any agreements of that sort that require it. We're at that phase now, similar to back in 95, 96, is we're trying to convince people that the cloud is the next logical step for their business. So we're taking away every barrier. We don't force you to sign commitments. We don't have setup fees. There's no upfront costs. Traditionally, what you come in for is a small monthly subscription fee. It could be anywhere from $100 to $200 a month to take care of your office, perhaps a little bit more. But that can save you tens of thousands of dollars versus new PCs. So there's no contracts required. There's no gotchas, and there's nothing that really ties them into it. So they always have access to their data. They always have it. They could take it somewhere else if they choose, with that.
Now, how did you reach people in 30 countries?
That's an interesting way of marketing. Basically, everyone's heard of maybe the term guerrilla marketing,
Yeah.
which is basically utilizing the social media of the internet. Friends, everyone in a local business is used to traditional friends and family and referring to their friends and family and so forth. So if you have a small shop selling, whatever it may be, they're just telling their friends and their friends and their friends, and it slowly builds up over time. Well, the same thing works over the internet using the same social concepts.
Sounds more remarkable, though.
Well, it just gets more exponential because it's a bigger neighborhood of people talking to each other. So in a local community, there's only so many levels that it kind of goes. On the internet, it just goes out to such a massive level. If you do, what we do is, again, we let the word of mouth, go out there. We provide a good quality service at a good value, so we don't really have to tie them into contracts, and it just keeps spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. We now have clients, as I mentioned, in 30 plus countries across the globe. At 4 in the morning, we'll have someone in Egypt sign signing up for putting up their protest page during that protest that everyone heard about a couple months
Right.
back. We had people from that movement setting up websites and protest sites. And then you get into 4 p.m. in the daytime here, we have a business owner that needs a new mail server set up on the spot. So we're adaptive to handling wherever they might be located. To us, it doesn't make a difference. The internet, the cloud, it really just creates a very even playing field.
I hadn't heard the Egyptian one, but I was dying to ask you about the Iran.
Sure, yeah. A few years back during the original Iran protests that everyone had, that made the news, if you will, one of the largest, most outspoken members of that was not located in Iran. He was a student here in California at the time. And he had invented some technology that helped the protesters bypass the government filtering system. And he had to utilize the internet for that. He needed a large amount of cloud computing power in order to defeat the Iranian government. So
Sounds like you would.
yeah, so he actually rented with us cloud computing resources to put his application into, utilizing our data center. So he basically then went back to the protesters in Iran at the time and said, okay, this is how you get through the government system using my technology, and it came right through our data center here in Albany.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just the internet can connect to anywhere, any time. It really can.
Yeah, one of the things we stumbled onto some time ago was, and one of the reasons for the success of the company online has been that our website, we came to realize, is one of the top visited websites on the internet when you compare it to other local businesses. I think in our area, the only business that really beats us out from an internet ranking is the Times Union, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange concept. If you look at every TV and radio station,
Right.
there's more eyeballs on our website every single day than every single TV and radio station in the capital region.
That is remarkable.
And that's, just look at the U.S. traffic. It's only because of just that our footprint
global
out
footprint,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Whereas you have, of course, the TV and the radio stations and the newspapers.
local.
They're focusing on local. So even though there's thousands and millions, of eyeballs, there's that much more from the global environment that come back in to, take a look at some of the stuff that we're doing. So it's a very strange concept to realize that.
That's great. So we go from global. Let's just talk about one more thing. We have a little bit of time left. You're involved this year in the Freihofer's Run for Women.
Yes, we got involved with the Freihofer's Run for Women more closely with the community walk event. We teamed up with Rupert Advertising and they got us involved in this. And we actually developed an online giving portal for the nonprofits that participate in the community walk. The whole purpose of the community walk is to get the communities involved and get support out there for the nonprofits by having pledges made for the people that are walking for the different charities. So we developed, with Rupert Advertising and what's George's group's name?
The USA
Track and Field, yeah.
Oh.
Who's actually responsible for running the Freihofer's Run for Women. But with them, we developed this concept of the online giving portal, and we sponsored a community breakfast to kick this off. And they've had really good response for it. Much more organizations have signed up this year than had previously, and they've really got a nice looking profile now on their website for people to go on and make the pledges, so they don't have to worry about collecting the money the day of the event and so on.
Nice.
But that's one of the things we're doing, trying to get our name out there in the community, and we've done that successfully so far with the nonprofits that we've been approaching, because nonprofits are all organizations that have staffing and businesses, and we're trying to get our name out there through them, and by doing that, they all have board of director members that are in local businesses, and it just multiplies from there.
Right.
So.
One more question. What's next?
Well, right now we're finishing up construction at our Latham facility for the new data center. That'll be ready late this summer, fourth quarter. We'll be putting in new clients into the facility. We're going to fill that facility up at the rate we're growing within 3 to 5 years, and then the next facility right here in the capital region will probably be about 10 times that size.
Do you have trouble finding workers?
We're always looking for good people. We're hiring now, currently actively seeking engineers, sales, everything across the board. One of the advantages being in the capital region, you got some great colleges, great talent.
True.
Great.
And,
Love to hear that.
Yeah, well, with the Malta project and the nanoscience, build out here, you pretty much, there's so many new jobs and people coming into the region, it's actually giving us a great leg up. That's one of the reasons we enjoy being in the capital region so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Richard.
Great to learn about the company.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, that you tune in again next time, and that you have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.